what if most of your thinking isn't thinking at all? What if it's just reacting, a performance you inherited, not a truth you chose? Nietzsche believed that most people live their entire lives under the illusion that they're thinking. But in reality, they're just repeating their fears, repeating their past, repeating the beliefs that were never truly theirs. In this video, you won't just learn how to think clearly. You'll uncover the 7 silent signs that prove your thoughts were never fully your own. And once you see them, you'll never unsee them. By the end, you won't just think differently. You'll finally know where your thinking actually begins. You go through your day trying to stay calm. You answer messages. You get things done. You smile, nod, and say, "I'm fine." But something feels off, because deep down, your thoughts are not quiet. They run in circles. They repeat arguments you never said out loud. They overanalyze looks, pauses, silences, and you start to wonder, am I thinking, or am I just reacting? Friedrich Nietzsche once said that people rarely think at all. They obey. They follow habits. They echo the loudest voice in the room, while convincing themselves they're thinking for themselves. And if that's true, how much of what you call thinking is really your own? Let's begin with something subtle, something dangerous. You sit alone, replaying a moment over and over. What you said, what they said, what you should have said. You're trying to solve it, to find the perfect thought that will give you peace. But peace doesn't come, because this isn't thinking. This is mental looping. You call it being analytical, being wise, being thorough. But it's not wisdom. It's fear, disguised as preparation. You rehearse life instead of living it. You try to control every outcome in your head because the unknown makes you panic. You say, "I just want to be ready." But Nietzsche would say, you just want to avoid pain. And to avoid pain, you sacrifice your freedom. You overplan. You overquestion. You think 10 steps ahead, but forget to be where you are. Real thinking isn't tight. It's not exhausting. It's open, fluid, creative. If your thoughts are heavy, you're not thinking clearly. You're managing anxiety. And that's not your fault. You were taught that preparing for the worst is how you survive. But survival thinking is different from clear thinking. Survival reacts. Clarity reflects. So ask yourself, do my thoughts bring insight or just temporary relief? Because if you always feel drained after thinking, you're not solving, you're spinning. And Nietzsche would warn you, overthinking can feel noble, but it's often the ego's way of avoiding reality. You sit in silence, and a voice inside says, "You're not enough. You messed up again. You always do this. Why can't you just be better?" It feels like your voice, but it isn't. It's a voice you inherited from a parent, a teacher, a past relationship, maybe even society itself. You internalized their disappointment, their expectations, their pressure. And now, when you try to make a decision, that voice speaks before you do. It questions your joy. It rewrites your desires. It turns "what if" into "don't you dare." Nietzsche believed we are not born with beliefs. We absorb them. From culture, from religion, from the need to belong. He called this the herd mentality, the way people unconsciously mirror others to avoid standing out. And that herd voice is clever. It speaks with your tone. It uses your memories. It feels like it's you, even when it's not. So when you hear a thought, pause. Ask, who taught me to think this way? Whose fear am I carrying? Whose shame have I mistaken for my own? You'll be surprised at how many thoughts are recycled. Second-hand emotions, old wounds dressed as logic. You can't think clearly when you're haunted by voices that aren't yours. It's like trying to write your own story while someone else holds the pen. But here's the hardest part. Sometimes those voices kept you safe. The one that said, don't speak up. The one that said, don't expect too much. The one that said, be careful or they'll leave. They were protecting you when you didn't have the power to protect yourself. But now you do. And what once helped you survive is now what's keeping you small. Nietzsche would say, to become yourself, you must first kill the false gods within. The ones who taught you silence is virtue, and fear is wisdom. You don't have to hate the voice. Just recognize it, thank it, and gently begin to think beyond it. At this point, you might feel something strange, like a fog lifting, like a weight you didn't even know was there, starting to loosen. That's the beginning of clarity. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's quiet, like the first breath after holding it too long, like finally realizing, this thought isn't mine. But clarity isn't just about clearing out the old. It's about noticing what replaced it. Because sometimes the mind doesn't free you. It just builds new prisons that look like wisdom, false confidence, spiritual superiority, hyper-intellectualism. And what comes next might shake that illusion entirely. Because the signs that follow aren't just emotional. They're systemic. They show how the world benefits when you stop thinking clearly and start playing by rules you didn't write. You've started to question the voices in your head. You've seen how what you call thinking might actually be inherited noise, and you're not alone. But now, something deeper happens. You begin to notice how you make decisions, not just what you think, but why you think that way. And that's where the next signs reveal themselves. You wake up and feel tired. But your brain says, I should get up. I should be productive. I should be grateful. You scroll through your feed and feel jealous. And the voice returns, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be happy for them. I should just move on. Your mind is full of shoulds. But who decided what you should be? Nietzsche said, morality is just obedience in disguise. Most people don't think. They conform. They live by rules they never questioned. Rules given by family, religion, culture, or social media. So you become polite instead of honest, grateful instead of real, calm instead of alive. You chase goals because they look good, not because they're yours. And here's the trap. You mistake inner pressure for conscience. You confuse guilt with morality. You think obedience is clarity, but it's not. Real thinking begins when you stop asking, what should I do? And start asking, what do I know to be true, even if no one agrees? That question is terrifying, Because it will shake everything you built on someone else's foundation. But that fear, it's the first proof that you're starting to wake up. You post something deep. You check the likes. You buy something nice. You wonder if they noticed. You help someone. You feel empty when they don't thank you. Your thoughts don't stay inside anymore. They orbit others. You don't just think, you perform. And Nietzsche saw this clearly. He wrote that modern people don't seek truth. They seek approval disguised as truth. Your opinions are shaped by who you want to impress. Your identity is filtered through fear. Will they judge me? Will they reject me? Will I still belong? And so, slowly, your thinking gets hijacked. You post what's safe. You say what's acceptable. You never dig too deep. Because what if the truth makes you unlovable? But real thinking is not always likable. It's not clean, cute, or marketable. It's messy. It offends. It challenges the room instead of pleasing it. When you give other people the power to validate your thoughts, you lose the courage to hold them. Nietzsche called this slave morality, when people believe something is good, not because it's good, but because others said so. So here's the question. Would you still believe what you believe if no one clapped for you? If not, your mind is not free. It's leased out. And the rent is paid in silence, self-abandonment, and quiet resentment. You read books. You listen to podcasts. You can explain big ideas. But nothing in your life really changes. Why? Because you mistake knowing something for living it. You say things like, I know I should set boundaries. I know I deserve better. I know I need to slow down. But you don't. And it's not because you're lazy. It's because knowing is mental. Understanding is cellular. Nietzsche believed that too much reading can make you dumber because you collect thoughts like trophies instead of wrestling with them until they're true for you. Real thinking isn't about repeating ideas. It's about integrating them. It's when you read a quote and instead of saying, "That's so true," you sit in silence and feel your stomach tighten. Because suddenly, the idea points to something in you. A pattern, a wound, a contradiction. That's when thinking becomes transformation. But most people never reach that point. They skim ideas like headlines. They nod along. They sound smart. But inside, they're unchanged. It's not how much you know. It's how deeply you've digested it. And until you start thinking from within, not just copying what's popular, your mind isn't awake. It's echoing. You've now seen 5 signs. Each one cuts a little deeper. Each one shines a light on places you've ignored, the places where your thoughts aren't really yours. But what happens next is heavier. Because the next signs aren't just about your thoughts. They're about the structure you live in. A world that benefits when you stay confused, overstimulated, and doubtful. Nietzsche said, "If you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you." And in these final signs, you'll see what happens when you finally stop staring into the noise and begin staring back. You've begun to question the thoughts in your head. You've realized that approval, fear, and imitation often wear the mask of clarity. But there's something even more disturbing you're about to uncover. Because the final 2 signs aren't just about your habits. They're about your environment, and how it's been designed to keep you from ever thinking clearly at all. Let's go deeper. You scroll for hours. You consume podcasts. You watch smart videos. You think, I'm learning. But beneath the surface, something strange is happening. You're not getting quieter. You're getting louder, mentally. And Nietzsche would say, that's not thinking. That's mental noise addiction. You live in a world designed to make you feel like you're doing something, without ever doing anything real. You chase clarity through stimulation. But stimulation is a thief. It robs you of reflection. It gives you information, but never time to turn it into insight. Nietzsche once said, "The greatest events, they are not our loudest, but our stillest hours." But silence is rare now, not because it's gone, but because you've forgotten how to hear it. You confuse mental activity with mental clarity. But the brain that's always chewing never digests. True thought requires pause. It requires boredom. It requires sitting with something long enough for it to break you open or break apart. But silence is dangerous in a distracted world, because in silence, the truth surfaces. Your unmet needs, your fake roles, your self-abandonment. So the world gives you stimulation instead, because stimulation feels like progress, but never asks you to change. You scroll past your healing. You swipe past your awakening. You stay busy enough to never be still. And in that stillness, that's where clear thinking begins. Not when your screen loads faster, but when your soul speaks slower. This is the deepest wound, because most people never learned to think for clarity. They learned to think for safety. As children, you noticed the tension in the room. You adjusted. You kept the peace. You became smart, polite, helpful, invisible, whatever it took. You learned to think based on, what will keep me from being hurt? What will keep them happy? What version of me gets love? So your thinking became armor. But armor is not truth. It's protection. And Nietzsche warned, he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But if your why is survival, then every thought you have is rooted in fear. You don't dream, you manage. You don't choose, you calculate. You don't think clearly, you scan for danger. And here's where the trap deepens. Society rewards this survival mode. It tells you, be efficient, stay productive, don't question too much, just keep moving. You become easy to manipulate when you're scared. You buy things you don't need. You obey rules that don't serve you. You chase success that feels empty, but familiar. Because familiar means safe. And your brain doesn't want freedom. It wants safety. So you shrink. You comply. You doubt your instincts. You silence your voice. And every time you choose comfort over confrontation, you lose a piece of yourself. But Nietzsche didn't believe you were doomed to stay this way. He believed that within every person is the capacity to become something greater. Not a follower, not a puppet, but a creator. A mind that doesn't just react, but sees. A soul that doesn't just copy, but creates its own path. This doesn't happen through knowledge. It happens through suffering, through questioning everything you once called you. And it starts when you stop thinking to survive and start thinking to become. So let's bring it all together. You've just seen the 7 signs. They weren't meant to judge you. They were meant to free you. You now know. Most of your thoughts weren't born in your mind. They were borrowed. Most of your clarity wasn't clarity. It was fear dressed as logic. Most of your thinking wasn't truth. It was performance. But here's the beauty in all this. If your thoughts weren't really yours, then you get to decide what they become now. You are not stuck. You are waking up. Nietzsche never offered comfort. He offered confrontation. Because only when you confront your inherited mind can you start building your authentic one. So here's your reflection. Are you truly thinking? Or just thinking what someone once told you was safe? If this resonated with you, don't walk away in silence. Say something below. Let your voice return. Share the sign that hit you hardest. And if you want to keep building that authentic mind, subscribe. Not for me, but for the version of you that's finally ready to see. You've started thinking clearly now, and once you do, you can never go back. If this video gave you a new way of seeing yourself, or helped you think more clearly than you did before, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment and tell me what clicked for you. And if you want more deep, honest content like this, subscribe to Thynksee. This is just the beginning.